There's a particular kind of quiet that arrives late at night. Not the peaceful kind. The other one. You've closed the door, the house is still, and for the first time all day, no one needs anything from you. No role to hold up, no version of yourself to perform. And in that quiet, sometimes, a strange thought surfaces. A thought most people are too busy to notice. Somewhere, there was a person you were supposed to become. Not the person you are, not the one who answers the emails, who smiles at the right moments, who has learned so well how to be what everyone expects. Someone else, someone earlier, someone who wanted things before you learned which wants were acceptable and which ones to bury. You don't think about them often. Life doesn't leave much room, but they're not gone. That's the part almost no one tells you. They're waiting. Carl Jung had a name for what happens here. He believed every one of us begins life whole, undivided. A child doesn't yet know which parts of itself the world will approve of, and which it will quietly ask you to hide. But the world does ask, slowly, gently, most of the time, through 1,000 small moments where being yourself cost you something, and being what others wanted cost you nothing. So you adapted. Everyone does. You built a self that worked, one that fit the rooms you had to walk into. Jung called this the persona, the mask. Not a lie, exactly. A necessary compromise. The trouble is what happens to everything the mask left out. Because you didn't destroy those parts of yourself. You couldn't. You only sent them somewhere you wouldn't have to look. And they've been there ever since. The abandoned self, carrying everything you were told not to be. Here is the question this whole journey turns on. The one worth sitting with, even when it's uncomfortable. If you never chose to leave that person behind, if it simply happened, quietly, over years, then what would it take to find them again? And more unsettling still, would you even recognize them if you did? Stay with me. To understand how you lost that person, you have to go back to how you met them. Because you did meet them once. You were them. Think of a child. Maybe you've watched one. Before the world has finished its work, a child is astonishingly whole. They cry when they're sad and laugh when they're not. They announce what they love without checking whether it's allowed. They have no persona yet, because they have not yet learned they need one. And then, slowly, they learn. A boy is told that boys don't cry, and something in him goes quiet. A girl is praised for being easy, for being good, for needing little, and she files away the parts of her that need. A child raises their hand with a strange, wonderful idea, and the room laughs, and they decide, without words, never to do that again. None of this is cruelty, usually. It's just the world shaping us to fit. Every family, every culture hands a child a quiet list. These parts are welcome here, and these are not. Jung understood something unsettling about this list. The traits we're asked to hide are not always our worst ones. Very often, they are simply our inconvenient ones. Our intensity, our sensitivity, our anger, which might have been telling the truth, our strangeness, which might have been our gift. So we don't bury only the ugly things. We bury the alive things, the parts that were too much, too loud, too tender for the room we were standing in. And here's what almost no one realizes. When you push a part of yourself into the dark, it doesn't die there. It doesn't even weaken. Jung wrote that the less a hidden part is lived, the blacker and denser it grows. It waits. It gathers weight in the dark. You can feel it sometimes. In the flash of envy, towards someone who lives more freely than you allow yourself to, in the exhaustion that has no clear cause, in the sudden disproportionate anger at something small, anger that was never really about the small thing at all. Those are not flaws in you. They are messages. They are the abandoned self knocking, the only way it knows how. Most people spend their whole lives mistaking that knock for something wrong with them. They try to silence it, to manage it, to medicate it away. But what if the knocking was never the problem? What if it was an invitation? Stay with me, because this is where it turns. There's a cost to keeping a part of yourself in exile, and most people are paying it right now without knowing the name of the bill. The cost is energy. It takes enormous, silent effort to hold a part of yourself down for decades, to keep the mask in place, to make sure the parts you were told were unacceptable never slip out where someone might see. You don't feel this effort directly. You feel it as tiredness, as a life that looks right on paper and feels strangely empty underneath. As the question that comes at 3 a.m, is this all? A question you push away by morning because there's work to do and the mask has to go back on. Jung saw this clearly. He said a person can spend the entire first half of their life building the persona, succeeding at it even, earning the title, winning the approval, becoming exactly what they were asked to become. And then, one day, often in the middle of life, something breaks through. The success stops tasting like anything. The role that fits so well starts to feel like a costume, and a quiet, deadly boredom seeps into everything. The feeling Jung described, where the things that once mattered go gray and meaningless. This is not depression in the simple sense. It's something stranger. It's the abandoned self, refusing to stay buried any longer. It is the part of you that was never allowed to live, demanding, finally, to be let in. And here is the moment most people get wrong. When that emptiness arrives, the instinct is to fix the outside, change the job, change the city, change the partner, find a new role that fits better than the old one. And sometimes that brings relief for a while, until the same emptiness returns, wearing a new face. Because the emptiness was never pointing outward. It was pointing in, toward the person you left behind, toward everything the mask made you exile in order to belong. Jung called the turning point something deceptively gentle. He called it the breakdown of the persona, the moment the mask stops working. And though it feels like falling apart, he believed it was often the opposite. He believed it was the beginning of becoming real. But, and this is the part the comforting stories leave out, you cannot meet the self you abandoned without paying a price. And that price is the hardest thing this journey will ask of you. We'll name it now. The price is this. To find the self you abandoned, you have to let go of the self you became. Not all of it. The mask isn't your enemy. You needed it, and you'll go on needing some of it. But the version of you that was built entirely to be acceptable, the one that measured every impulse against whether it would be approved, that version cannot make this journey with you. It's too afraid. Its whole purpose was safety. And what you're doing now is not safe. It's true, which is a different thing. Jung was honest about this in a way that most comforting voices are not. He didn't describe becoming yourself as a warm homecoming with no cost. He called it one of the most difficult tasks a human being can undertake. He said it involves suffering, a kind of loss, because the person you have spent decades being has to loosen their grip. And that person does not go quietly. There is a grief in this that no one prepares you for. To meet who you might have been is also to feel, fully, the years you spent as someone else. The choices made from fear rather than truth. The rooms you shrank to fit. You don't get those years back. That's real. That has to be felt, not skipped past. But here's what waits on the other side of that grief. And it's the reason this is worth everything it costs. The self you abandoned is not a stranger. It was never your enemy, and it was never broken. Jung believed the very traits we exile carry, hidden inside them, our greatest undeveloped strengths. The sensitivity you buried was a capacity for depth. The intensity you were told to soften was the source of your aliveness. The strangeness the room laughed at was the most original thing about you. Everything you sent into the dark to survive. It kept your gifts safe there in storage, waiting for the day you'd be ready to carry them. That's what the knocking always was, not a flaw asking to be fixed, a life asking to be lived. To become whole, Jung said, is not to become perfect. It's to become complete, to take back the parts of yourself you exiled, and to stop living as half a person in order to be an acceptable one. The person you were meant to become never actually died. They've been waiting at the gate this entire time. The only question left is whether you'll open it. So let's return to where we began, to that quiet, late at night, when no one needs anything from you, and the strange thought surfaces that somewhere there was a person you were supposed to become. At the start, I asked what it would take to find them, and whether you'd even recognize them if you did. Here is the truth Jung spent his life circling. You will not find that person the way you find something you've lost. They are not hidden in your past, waiting to be recovered, unchanged. Too much time has passed. You are not the child who first buried them. What you can do is something quieter and, in a way, more demanding. You can stop abandoning them today. In the small moments no one else will ever see. It begins the next time you feel that flash of envy towards someone living freely. And instead of shaming yourself for it, you ask what it's trying to show you about a hunger you've never let yourself name. It begins the next time the anger rises out of proportion, and you don't rush to silence it, but wonder, quietly, what truth it might be carrying that you've refused to hear. It begins the next time you're about to shrink yourself to fit a room, and you pause, and you let yourself take up the space you actually are. This is the work Jung called individuation. It has no finish line. There is no day you arrive, complete, and set it down. It is a lifelong turning toward the parts of yourself you once had to leave behind, and choosing, again and again, not to leave them behind anymore. Will you recognize the self you abandoned? Maybe not at first. They'll feel unfamiliar, the way anything long exile does when it finally comes home. But you'll know them by a certain feeling, a sense, faint and then stronger, of becoming more yourself, of the emptiness slowly filling, not from the outside, but from within. You spent so long learning to be acceptable, it cost you someone. But the door was never locked from their side. It was only ever locked from yours. And it's still there, late at night, in the quiet, waiting for the moment you decide you no longer need to be anyone but who you already are. That's where we'll leave it for tonight. Take care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next one.